Our first sensory cooking recipe is egg bake with cheddar cheese and bacon. We will also include sensory and language objectives. Sensory ideas include feeling the texture of the bacon uncooked and then cooked. It will smell delicious as it cooks. Careful, it will likely be hot. Smell the onion and garlic powder and notice the strong scents. Language ideas include what meal could this dish be served for? How many servings does this recipe make? Would they be large or small servings? What else could we add to this dish? Would jalapenos make it hot? Would spinach make it more healthy? With all that being said, let's start cooking. Good morning and welcome to Sensory Cooking. We are going to start our first cooking project with an egg and bacon bake. And it's got cheddar cheese and spices. I think it'll be a great thing to share with your family and friends. I do want to say that as we start this process, we are going to, on every recipe, create a speech and a sensory objective. So we want to be sure that that's a part of our cooking experience because this is for neurodiverse people all across the board, and we want to make sure that we are accomplishing more than just making an egg bake when we finish this. So the first three things we're going to do is make sure our hands are clean. If you have hair probably any longer than mine, you want your hair back, and that you've taken whatever recipe or recipes you're using and you've run through them top to bottom to make sure that you have everything you need, if things need to be divided up, or if there's something that's confusing, you figure it out before you're in the middle of the recipe. So here we go. The recipe starts with us cooking our bacon. Bacon is our sensory objective for this recipe. Bacon should be an objective for everything. When it starts out, it's going to be kind of slimy and soft, and as it cooks, it's going to get crispy, so that's going to teach us what heat does to this food. It's also going to smell delicious, so that's another sensory part of it. And we will start with that. Then we're going to fry up our potatoes and add that, and mix our eggs and cheese. Since bacon is our sensory item, what I would recommend is that whoever you're working with, give them a chance to feel it and see how, at this point, it's kind of wet and a little bit slimy, and what's going to happen is it's going to get crispy when we cook it. So there's a variety of different ways we can cut this. I actually like using a kitchen scissors. Knife is hard. I mean, if you have a super sharp knife, you can do it pretty easily. Mine works well. If you don't have a super sharp knife, what might work better, or if you have kids who are doing it, a cooking scissors will actually cut through it pretty nice. So whatever you're most comfortable with, depending on who you're cooking with, sometimes I find that the scissors is a little less frustrating than a knife. And so we'll just cut our way through it. And then if it gets to be too much, you can take half off and just do half at a time. You do need to be careful of that finger that's underneath. And once we get it all cut, we're going to take it over to the pan and start frying. And that'll be our next step. So now we're cooking the bacon. You need to get to learn your stove and how quickly or not quickly it cooks. My front burner is not incredibly fast, but will heat up over time. So we're going to render some of the fat out of this bacon, and eventually it'll get nice and crispy. And then we will take the crispy bacon and place it on this paper towel to absorb the fat. And the rest of the bacon grease will go into this mug and just be set to the side. Eventually we're going to cook the hash browns in the same pan, so we don't want there to be a huge amount of fat in the bottom of the pan when we do that. We're going to set our oven on 350 degrees. It'll bake for an hour, but we need to preheat, so we're just getting that turned on and started for now. So now we're going to do the egg portion of the egg bake. We will need 9 eggs and 2 cups of milk. What we're going to do is crack all our eggs into a bowl. This is called the dump bowl. And what we can do is put all of our garbage in here. And what that does is it keeps our work surface nice and clean. Also, since we're working with eggs, as soon as we're done cracking them, we're going to wash our hands. We're going to wash off our board and make sure that everything is cleaned up so that we're not contaminating anything. I really like to crack, if you crack on the side of the bowl, you have a tendency to get shells in the bowl. If you crack on a solid surface, that doesn't really happen as much. There's our 9 eggs. And hand washing. All right, we're going to next add 2 cups of milk. And whisk it together. And we need to be keeping an eye on our bacon as we're going to make sure that we aren't burning our bacon. So I'm going to step away from this for a second and check the bacon. And now we have our eggs and our milk mixed together, and we're going to throw in garlic powder and onion powder. Again, if you're working on a sensory level, it's really a nice strong smell. The garlic and the onion is, take a whiff and get the idea of what you're cooking and what things are going to taste like. That does clump a little, so we do need to whisk it pretty good once it's in there. And then we're going to put in some black pepper, sort of to the amount you choose, maybe a teaspoon. We like a little more at our house. This is also a great recipe because you can add you could add peppers, you could add spinach, you can do lots of things. We're going to keep it kind of basic today, but if you're adding other ingredients, just make sure they're pretty dry. So if you wash your spinach, make sure it's dry, or your peppers. You could put feta cheese instead of cheddar cheese, so you'll have lots of options. Well, our bacon is getting nice and crispy. At this point, it's kind of a matter of personal choice. Some people like it really crispy. Other people like it a little more meaty. For our family, this is about right. You could certainly cook it another minute or two and get it a little crispier, but for the Merwins, this works just great. So right now, we're going to just take our bacon. It'll also cook a little more in the oven. And we're going to get our bacon out. Now, a little bit of this bacon will make your hash browns delicious, a little bit of this bacon grease, but you don't want too much because it will make it not as enjoyable. So what we're going to do is just leave a little bit of the bacon in the bottom of the pan, but we need to get rid of a lot of this grease. And you can't pour it in your garbage can until it's cool. So we're just going to do this for now, and then later on we'll dispose of it. So a little tiny bit of grease left in the pan to cook our hash browns. Burner back on high. Our pan's nice and hot. There's just a little tiny bit of bacon grease. If you didn't have a nonstick pan, you'd need more. But since we do, it should easily cook nicely in here. We don't need any more fat than that. Okay, our hash browns, what we're trying to accomplish is potatoes have a lot of water in them, and we need to get some of that liquid out. So we don't have to get these cooked super dark, but what we are trying to do is get the steam to escape so that when we put it in our egg bake, it isn't too watery. So we're going to get this on high, let it sit for a minute, and it'll brown a bit, but mostly, like I said, we're just trying to get the moisture out. And then once that happens, we will put that in our 9x13 baking pan, add the bacon, and then we will cover it with cheese and put the egg mixture over the top and bake it. So we're not looking for the hash browns to get crispy, we're just looking to release the water, and they will start to brown just a little bit, and that's great. And then we're going to add the bacon back in. You can either add it in this pan or when you get it in the pan to bake it. We're going to do this. Toss it together. And then we'll move back over to the baking dish. Burners off. And we're ready to assemble our egg bake. So we've sprayed a 9x13 pan. I like glass. You could certainly use metal. I think glass holds the heat better and it's pretty, so you can serve it right in this pan and you don't make another dish, which always makes me happy. Again, the potatoes are a little bit brown, but mostly we were just wanting to get the moisture out. We spread it evenly. You could also mix sausage in here if you like sausage better than bacon. That works fine. I keep a plate available to put all my dirty utensils on to keep things cleaner. Then we're going to add the cheese on top before we put the egg in. Kind of evenly distribute it. Add the egg mixture. That's, again, the eggs, milk, and spices. I like to have it in a dish that pours. It just makes it easier. You don't have to, but it makes things go a little bit easier. Once that's added, we are going to walk it over to the oven and get it baking. It bakes pretty consistently. It'll take about an hour to bake. Sometimes you can do it in a little bit less. An hour will get it cooked thoroughly. Okay, we're going to place it in the oven at 350 degrees on the middle rack and cook it for an hour. I'm going to set the timer on 50 minutes because I want to be able to be sure to check it before the time is up to make sure we're not overcooking it. Okay, so it's been about 55 minutes and I think it is ready to come out of the oven. It's completely cooked. Shouldn't wiggle in the middle. It's nice and solid. And now it is time to enjoy. You see the bacon and the hash browns and the cheese and the eggs cooked in. We enjoy it with salsa or avocado or sriracha. There's a bunch of different ways to eat it. And we do it for breakfast or dinner, sometimes for lunch. It's a great thing to keep around if people just want to heat up a piece. So, enjoy. Did you work on the sensory goals throughout the video? Did you feel the texture of the bacon? Smell the garlic and onion powder. Did you work on fulfilling language goals? Did you talk about what meal it could be served for? We say breakfast, lunch, or dinner. How many servings it makes? Would it feed 12 people? We think so. What else could be added? Jalapenos would add spice. Spinach and red pepper would make it healthier and add color and texture. For more information and recipes, check out www.sensorycooking.net.